Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. As always, another technical difficulty, Bogan. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, BJ and GameDay back again for another week. This week, it looks like it's just myself and Bogan. No signs of Joshua King at this point in time. Not sure what's doing. Probably still hiding his face after the start. But it'll be you and I, Bogan, bringing you a bit of a round 3 NRL Supercoach recap and round 4 preview, mate. How are you?
Oh, mate, I don't know why you have me on this week. I fucking went terrible last week, so no good. But yeah, apart from that, doing all right. Looking forward to the long weekend. So yeah,
Beautiful, mate. How'd you score on the weekend?
Oh, mate, I didn't even crack the ton. I had 900 and something.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's fucking terrible.
Lose. No good, mate. I wasn't too bad. 1186. Left a few points big. I think I played Texie Hoy the first 2 weeks. Didn't play him on the weekend as always, and he turned up. But otherwise, I think it was fairly solid. Fergo performed for me. Captain Barney could have been worse. Yeah, played Watson. So nothing too crazy, but yeah, I'll take 1186. But looking forward to the weekend. Obviously, it was a weekend of carnage, Bogan. There was an unprecedented amount of injuries. I don't think I've seen anything like that in my time. In the Raiders game, we saw them reduced to 14 men for the majority of the game, and then in the Sharks Para game later on that night, the Sharks were reduced to 13 men. So it's prompted a lot of discussion, I think, throughout the week.
It's prompted a rule change. They've now bringing in the 18th man for the concussion rule.
Yeah, which I think is a purposeless rule. I don't think we'll ever see in the next 5 years a scenario where there's 3 players ruled out due to HIA, because that is the requirement to be able to use the substitution. So it would be, I can't see when we're going to need it next. I find it a bit of a funny one.
Well, it's just where do you get to the point where you just say you extend the squad? Like there's a reason why they don't have. I don't think they have the runner rule in cricket anymore because it got exploited, and I could just see this rule getting exploited as well.
Yeah, and I think there's been plenty of chat about ways you could work around that by having a guy have to sit out the following week or have 2 weeks out of the game if they are, substituted by the 18th man or whatever. But anyway, we'll see what happens. The rule might evolve. From round 5, they'll implement that one. There must be an emerging player, and 3 players have to fail the HIA. So we'll see what happens. Welcome everyone in the chat. I see it's absolutely lit already. Welcome back, all the regulars that I can see in there. And if you're new, if this is your first BJ on GameDay, welcome back. I think probably the best NRL Supercoach show that starts at about 9:10 on a Wednesday night, you'd have to say.
And is based primarily in Canberra.
Yes, and
we're definitely Canberra's best Supercoach show.
It's live streamed on YouTube, so there you go. Welcome. A bit of a recap. We'll start off with a recap, and then we'll have a look at the week ahead. And I'm not sure what else you got planned, Bogan. Happy to jump into it, bud.
Run through to just be the usual. So the results, the fixtures for next week, and then the leagues. So we'll get into last week's results.
Yeah, so started on was the Thursday night, Bogues. We had Panthers up against Melbourne, so grand final replay, absolute cracker of a game in the end. Panthers getting the job done, and it looked like the Storm might have snatched it back late, but it was some great cover defence from Penrith. So Supercoach-wise, top scorers for the Panthers ended up being the match winner in Kurt Capewell. Scored a late try there, which was good. And on the Melbourne Storm side of things, it was Cam Munster's top score with 86. So a couple of pretty popular players in that one. Interestingly, Dylan Edwards, I think, broke his hand shortly after half-time. So he was on over 60 at half-time, I think, Bogan. So he was in for an absolute monster. But I think he'll be out for about a month now due to a broken hand. Brendan Smith crashed over for a try, which would... few owners that would have been still held on to him would have been happy about that. And Tui Kamika. Obviously, there was some late news with Pappenhausen and Cleary ruled out of this one as well. So sort of took a little bit of the gloss off it, but still ended up being an absolute cracker of a game. And yeah, Panthers getting some redemption there in the first grand final replay of the year. Kick out, well, sort of mid-range. Plenty of guys mid-range scoring in that one, but yeah, it was a good contest on the Thursday.
Yeah, well, low scoring affair for two teams that a lot of people would have had Supercoach players in. So I know Cleary being out was one of the things that affected my scores. Would have affected a lot of others, and Pappy being out as well. They're two big scoring players that people had to scramble to replace in their lineups. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think in my team, Bogan, I only had Cleary and Madden as enough, so I had to wear an AE as well. So you're right, they were pretty highly owned. I think Matt Burton was really good as well for Penrith. He ended up filling in for Cleary, and he was awesome. It didn't really correlate to Supercoach points, but yeah, he just sort of proved he's going to be an absolute superstar of the future. But yeah, apart from that, there was nothing too exciting, massive to mention. Welsh didn't score too amazing. Asafa Solomona again, not awesome. Jerome Hughes is sort of on a bit of a lull. Fisher Harris as well scored really low. But anyway, we'll move on from that one.
yeah,
next one.
I had Fisher Harris as well, but yeah, Dragons on a roll. How many games until we start to call it a streak?
Well, when you're playing the Cowboys and Seagulls back to back, I guess you can start to call it a streak. But no, the Dragons ended up getting the job done. Oliver. And it was Lomax bringing a bit of a bounce back, Bogues. You'd be happy about that one. I know you got him in a couple of drafts.
Mate, well, yeah, draft. I got up in the BJ. Well, it's a bit of a spoiler for the leagues later, but yeah, people rip on me a fair bit because I pick Lomax fairly early in all my draft teams, but especially the keeper league that we're in, I think he's the future.
Yeah, no, so he scored a double, kicked a heap of goals, plenty of points for him there, so that was really good to see from owners. Pretty much maintained his price, and I guess probably the biggest thing out of that match for me was Josh Schuster. So he ended up being named on start on the edge with Ciro being out. Scored 90 points, so 42 in base, but had a hand in some attacking stats, and he actually looked really good. I think he was easily, looking like their most dangerous player. Anytime the ball sort of got to him or around him, it looked like something was going to happen. I'm sure he put Brad Parker away down the sideline a couple of times, and obviously he also went through and set Cherry Evans up under the post. So he will be a really popular cheapie this week. Bogues is only 203k. Unfortunately, he's only pickable in 5'8", so he won't have duality added, nor it'll be highly unlikely that he'll have that.
But those that are sitting on Moylan, it might be a good time to sell him.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think there's some options there with, maybe some underperforming hookers if a lot of people are running, a Watson, or even if you've got Lamb, you can trade him out and bring this guy in. I personally was thinking that Tex Hoy would knock out a 30 or a 40 and it'd be an easy trade from Hoy to him this week, but as it turned out, Hoy ended up smacking a ton out and I've probably got to hold him. So, yeah, I think he's probably the biggest one to mention out of that one. He looked really good. There's a lot of talk about what his security's like once Ciro's back, whether he'll take Kaczewski's spot or he'll hold the spot and Kaczewski doesn't end up getting a starting edge. I think he was pretty ordinary on the weekend. The Foz is as injury prone as any of them, so he could always find himself in a 6 jersey potentially as well. But I think, even short term, Ciro's going to be out for 4 to 6. And it looks like he's going to offer some pretty good base, and he'll have the attacking stats in him at times. He just looks really dangerous, and it's crazy, but I don't know if you saw it, but he's only 19 years old. He's pretty big for a 5'8", and like I said, only 19. He just looks really good. So
they're getting bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah, they are. So Garrick was big. Cherry Evans, I think, got a bit of junk in that one with the try at the end, but he made a heap of tackles, had a few first force dropouts, a few offloads, which bumped his score up a little bit, but he didn't drop as much cash as he might have. He had a big 120 break even. Yeah, I played Fui Mona. He was pretty disappointing with his 34. Ended up going him over Hoy for some reason. I thought that was a great idea, but Manly were woeful, and I think based on what I've seen so far, they're going to be a decent contender for the spoon if Turbo doesn't come back pretty
Oh,
soon.
we'll
But
get we'll get to the favourites for the fucking spoon soon enough.
well, there's plenty of those around. So yeah, and obviously Ben Hunt was a big one. I think a lot of people brought him in based on his break even. Had a really negative break even, so he was going to make a heap of cash. Ended up breaking his tibia or fibula or something like that. And yeah, he'll now be out pretty long term, I think. So disappointing for anyone that brought him in, or if you went Cleary to him or upgraded your enough halfback, you probably have to get off him straight away now. Alvaro as well. I think he was pretty disappointing. He was a bit of a smoky that went under the radar going into last week, but just didn't get the minutes. Didn't come to fruition, and then unfortunately ended up making too much cash as a result of that. So that sort of sucks with that one. Anything else you want to mention on that one, Bugs?
No, not really. I think I said that was the one where you could just fucking go and play pool if you're at the pub watching it.
Yeah, yeah. And then we transitioned into the Friday night game, mate, and we had what I thought would potentially be a grand final preview potentially this year. And we had
Oh, it still could be.
the game's biggest rivalry, the oldest rivalry in your boys, South Sydney, taking on the Chooks. And yeah, what can you say? I think the Rabbitohs sort of blew them off the park. Basically, the scoreline's a bit more flattering for the Chooks than what the game actually looked like. I think they scored a couple of late tries, Bogan, to make it look a lot closer than it actually was. Cody Walker top scored for the Bunnies with 95. I think he scored a double. Scored a nice setup from Latrell for the first try of the game as well. The little flick pass down the short side from Latrell. Dane Gagai also had a pretty good game, scored one, set one up. And Latrell, I think, was on about, he was near 50 at halftime or more and ended up on 67, which is a bit disappointing. On the Chook side of the field, Takiaho had a blinder. I think he played 80 in the end, if I'm not mistaken. He played pretty big minutes anyway. Kicked a few goals for him. Teddy ended up having a couple of shots as well.
I think that just goes to show the calibre of Teddy is that he scores 74 and you're like, shit, that's disappointing.
Yeah, controversially didn't get awarded a line break as well off his try. I mean, it's one of those ones that people say they never awarded a line break off a kick return, or there was an error, sorry. For me, the line was pretty set. I know there's only a few seconds in between it, but he's broken through a clear line. I wouldn't have been surprised if they had given it, but I also understand why they didn't, because that's just generally how they do it. But I know in the past, Semi Radradra has been, awarded line break stats for something similar. But yeah, so Jai Arrow was pretty good again. For anyone that got on him, wasn't amazing, but was pretty good off the bench. Joey Manu with a late try assist bumped his points up, and Angus wasn't anything too special in his return with 59 points. But yeah, I think the Rabbitohs bashed them. It's sort of, to me, the Roosters are in big trouble now. Obviously, Keary gone for the season, Bogan coming out of this one with the ACL, Lamb went down. So a couple of big injuries there, and we'll see in the team list a little bit later. They'll go with a completely new halves combination this week, and the highly anticipated debut of Sam Walker at halfback, which will be really interesting to see how that goes for him. And also a lot of people questioning, Tedesco and a few other guys in the side. For instance, I brought in Satili Tupanua, and half of the reason I brought him in was he was going to be running off Keary, and that's now changed after that 80 minutes of footy. But South look really good. Latrell just looks a different player this year. Cookie was pretty quiet, Bogues. I know he had a big week the week before, but I think he's just going to have these sorts of games where he doesn't really need to do anything. So if you do have Cookie, you're just going to have to ride these weeks where he might get 40, 50, and then hope that there's those other weeks in between where he goes 80, 90, 100 when they need him to. But you might be able to get him at he's break even 61 this week, so he might get a heap cheaper, but he could be a good time to pick him up potentially if you're looking for a premium hooker in the next few weeks. I don't think there was anything else I want to mention on that one. And first game on the Saturday.
Yeah, Raiders got robbed apparently. Refs came out and said, yeah, one of the Warriors' tries was a forward pass. I don't know about this whole the ref clarifying decisions, especially when they're wrong after the fact. I think it just causes contention.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. It was obviously always going to be tough, in my opinion, for the Raiders at the back end of that game, given the situation they had with Seb Chris and Ryan James, the early HIA, and then before that, Tapane with an ankle issue, ligaments, I think it was. So they lost 3 of their guys on the bench after about 15 minutes, I think it was. And it was always going to be a bit of a war of attrition, how long they were going to be able to hold on for. That said, in that first half, they just kept piling on the points, and I think they had it was like 24-6 or 25-6 going into halftime or something like that. Yes, there were some dubious calls, and yes, it wasn't awesome if you're a Raiders fan, but it was a really entertaining game of footy. It probably would have gone down as one of the Raiders, famous victories had they got the job done. There was, they nearly scored right at the end there if it wasn't for some brilliance of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. But obviously, as you can see, some monster scores there from Nicarima and Tuivasa-Sheck. Cody Nicker scored a try, had his hand in a couple, was kicking goals also, had a couple line break assists, line break for himself. Shecky was massive with the offloads, had a heap of offloads, a few line breaks, scored a try, but he was the difference in the end for me. I know there was a lot of attrition out there for the Raiders in terms of the bench, but I think without Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, the Warriors don't win that game, and he looks like he's going to try and finish off the year on a high with them before he goes over to Union. So you see him play a game like that, and you just think, wow, what a loss to the game it is when we lose someone like that after you've seen him sort of play games like that, Bogues. But really entertaining game of footy. Obviously heartbreaking for Raiders fans. Ricky wasn't happy in the press conference as well. Plenty of people got burnt by Ryan James Bogan with all the outs that were happening before the game with Pappy and Cleary, and there's already guys like Appy and Lolo and different people falling here and there, forced into playing someone like Ryan James who had done really well in the first 2 weeks. So that one's really sick and sort of stings, but unfortunately that shit happens in Supercoach, and you sort of consider yourself pretty lucky if you don't have something silly like that happen to you throughout the year. But that one's really sick because plenty of people were on him. Tohu Harris had another really good game on the Warriors side of the park, Bogan. He just keeps on being that guy that no one picks, but he just keeps on producing the points. I think he was a late switch to the edge as well. He was listed to start at lock and ended up sliding out on the edge to start the game, and Jazz actually started at lock, and then Tohu rotated into the middle eventually as well. So he did get some time in the middle as well, and I don't think Tohu played 80. Did he play 80? He did play 80, so he got through a heap of work and was just really good. Again, just continues to be a guy that gets overlooked. He's at 9% ownership, I think, if my percentage things are correct in front of me. Apart from that, Georgie Williams is pretty good. Hodgson turned back the clock with a few try assists in there. Ended up playing, obviously, a fair bit of the game, and Starling came on, so he probably got in the middle and did a fair bit of the work in the middle as well due to the injuries. But I think it was a really entertaining game of footy. Ryan Sutton was massive, barged over for there, ended up playing big minutes. But I think a lot of these scores, obviously, on the Raiders side of the field, especially if some of the forwards are inflated by the fact they played bigger minutes than they usually would. And also, the Warriors scores there with those 130s are blipped by the fact that there were so many tired bodies out there for the Raiders in the end that they end up getting some cheap sort of attacking stats with tired bodies, especially those little men, Nicarima and RTS. But anyway, heartbreaking for Ados. He was sort of filthy in the chat. I think Joshy was giving it to him in one of the chats as well. We were in the poor bugger, and as it turned out, the same scenario would unfold for the Sharks in an interesting twist of irony, Bogues.
Yeah, well.
Moving on to the 5 o'clock game, was it? On 5:30 game on the Saturday. It was Brisbane. It was a battle of the clash of the Titans.
Oh,
Brisbane,
mate, this was a fucking stinker.
Brisbane taking on the Bulldogs. The first half, I think, was was it 2-0 to Brisbane or 0-all or something like that. I think it was 0-all at half time. There was no points. It was really hard to watch. In the end, it ended up being quite entertaining. There was a few pretty good tries scored by Brisbane. Asako was the standout for him there. Obviously, he scored 114 points. Xavier Coates was massive. Herbie Farnsworth had a really good game, just from a watching perspective, not just from a Supercoach perspective. Tavita Pangai continues to impress. He scored 82 in, how many minutes did he play on the weekend? He wouldn't have played big minutes again in 57 minutes, so he's just really the time. Adam Elliott was the best for the Dogs. He just keeps on showing up for them. He's sort of been a smoky, I reckon. I think there was a few people that started with him, but he's getting 80 minutes. His base is pretty good. He's sort of awkwardly priced, but he's looking really dangerous. He's had a really good start to the year. I know there's just a lot of other guys that are in the picture in those second row spots, obviously with guys like Fafita and Barnett at a similar price performing really well. But this guy's sort of a bit of a smoky under the radar to start the season. Hasn't scored under 65, but rewarding anyone that started with him. Pretty big pod, but he's looking dangerous out there on that edge. I reckon it won't be long till he gets a double or something and cracks a ton. Gets a nice 110, 120 coming up. I played Tessie and Ricky. Nothing special there. I thought there might be a bit more attacking stats in this one than what happened. Milford was not overly impressive, but pumped out a 63. Who else is in there? Avarillo. I think he's been dropped this weekend, and Flano was pretty much non-existent with 13 points as well. So left a lot to be desired. I don't know where to from the Dogs here if you're getting done by the Broncos 24-0 and they take on South next week or this week. So they're going to be, have a big task ahead of them to back up after this one. And the Saturday night, it was Para taking on Cronulla. Para getting the job done in the end pretty easily, 28-4. But again, this one was sort of like, there wasn't much doing for a while. It was pretty close. Obviously, Cronulla had Wade Graham and Nick Ora ruled out due to HIA. Katoa ended up going off with a knee issue. And they also lost... who else did they lose? Will Kennedy as well, I think, at about half-time. So they ended up having no bench at all. And in the end, the floodgates just opened for Para. It wasn't convincing. As I said, had the Sharks had a full bench, it would have been interesting to see how this game went. Regan Campbell-Gillard was the top scorer for Para. He scored a try, also set Roy Stone up, so some unusual attacking stats for RCG there. I wouldn't be paying too much attention to that 97 from him at this point. Nakora was massive. He continues to produce out in the centres. Bogan, he's the back rower playing at centre. And a lot of those points were just from him getting involved. He was, plenty of tackle bust. He set up a try. It just looks a handful on the edge. If only he could learn to look on his right a little bit more and pass to Fergo, I reckon he would put Fergo in for 3 or 4. He is the reincarnation of Michael Blake in terms of passing to his outside man, because the amount of times as a
poor old Fergo, he always draws a fucking raw fucking deal.
It's a miracle he scored a double, Fergo. I will take that as a Fergo owner. I thought there is no chance he's getting any, good ball from Nakora. He's dead set Waka Blake 2.0. Obviously, he's a bit better running and involved and that sort of thing, but it was killing me watching that game. He got some real junk time as well at the end of that one, Fergo, so I'll take that one. Sivo as well was pretty good. He ended up going off for a period of time as well, so they were looking likely towards the end of that game. So that sort of hurt Sivo owners, the fact that he went off when he did, because there was some opportunities starting to show at the end of the game. Paulo was lucky. Bogan, he got a late try assist in, I think it was the Regan Campbell-Gillard try, but he got subbed after about 23 minutes to begin with and was only sitting around, not even 20 points at that stage. So his points are a little bit inflated, but he just keeps producing some sort of attacking stats. And, he's not... I don't know. He's going to be an interesting one. I'm a bit concerned as a Paulo and Takiaho owner, because the minutes are just all over the shop with these big boys at the moment.
Yeah, well, I've still got faith in Paulo.
Look, again, plenty of the Sharks forwards got in and did a bit of work, but I think a lot of these scores are going to be inflated by the fact that they had all those injuries. Reid Marnie wasn't anything special with 56, but he was sort of poking around, just didn't get any of those attacking stats that he had in the first 2 weeks. Moses obviously was ruled out with concussion, HIA as well. Bogues only scored 7 points, so that stung a few people I know of. I think I saw someone in one of the Facebook chats captained him as well. Dylan Brown wasn't anything special, sort of wondering what's going on with these para halves. Had a bit of a chat or a bit of a spitball about they're not looking awesome at the moment, these para halves, but they're still getting the job done, winning games, so that's all that matters. Yeah, and Asaya Papali, probably the only other one. I thought he might do a little bit better than he did. Still pumped out 58 points. But that looks like Maddo's going to be back this week, so that was short-lived anyway, so he didn't end up coming to fruition as much as you might have hoped, but still might pump out similar scores coming off the bench. And disappointingly, the first game on the Sunday, holy dooly. This just typifies what it means to be a Newcastle fan. Start the season well, come into this game expecting to win it and lose it like we did. I think our error count would have been the biggest of any team in the entire round. If I was bagging the Brisbane-Canterbury game with errors, I'm pretty sure we had more errors than both of those two teams combined. I think there was a short 10 to 15 minute period where we switched on and scored a couple tries and regained the lead somehow. But late try from Norfolk got the job done for them. Watson was massive for us. Bogues coming off the bench, that's an absolute monster score. He just, 55 minutes, about point per minute in base, but had plenty of attacking stats in him in that game. And the same with Tex Hoy. As I mentioned, didn't actually play Texie for the first time this season, so that stung a little bit. But Texie scored one, set one up, had a couple of line breaks. He also took the kicking duties off Barnett, who looked to have a bit of a calf issue, a cramp to begin with. He's gone for scans and possibly in a bit of doubt for this week, depending on what happens there. But I think Tui, I saw a tweet, Tui said he should be sweet this week, just probably won't be goal kicking. Amdui was the best on the Tigers side of the field with 90 points. He also set one up, scored one, set one up, kicked a few goals, had a try contribution. Nofaluna turned back the clock as well, Bogues. He had some points in him as well. Scored a try, had a few tackle busts, had a line break, so plenty of hit-ups, plenty of base from that. And, the usual culprits for us at the moment, a couple of guys that have started the season really well. Jaden Brayley, another try assist, massive amount of tackles made with a 78 and nearly made 100k this week. And Mitch Barnett, despite playing most of that second half, pretty much injured, still managed to pump out a 77, but was sort of luckily scored a try near the end of that second half to sort of bump his score up a bit because he was looking not awesome in that second half. And Davey Clemmer, our two boys at the front, Clemmer and Safidi, just keep pumping through the work, mate. They just keep churning out these points. Getting through a heap of work, really, really good for us at the front there. Disappointing not to get the win, Piercy's 300th, but, it is what it is. I won't complain about it too much. Utoi Kamanu as well scored a nice little try from distance, the big boy. So in a week where he was earning cash, made a little bit extra cash for everyone and also has a nice little negative break even this week. So should go on to continue to make some nice little earners for the next week or two as well. And to finish off the round, it was an absolute slaughter, Bogues, and I think this was the performance that Joshy's probably alluded to when he started the season with Brimson. And probably the Titans' performance that a lot of people have been waiting to see and we were sort of expecting. They absolutely pumped the Cows 44-8 and it was all over by half-time. And there was points everywhere all over the park. Obviously, Dave Fafita, another monster game. I think that's back-to-back tons from him. And a massive start to the season. Scored a try. Had a heap of tackles. He's got the offloads. He's got the tackle busts. He's just an absolute handful. He's taken a heap of hit ups as well, and generally his hit ups aren't small. When he runs the ball, he's generally carrying 10 metres. Takes so many blokes to bring him down, but he's just such a dangerous ball runner. Sammy filling in for Kelly turned up as well. He was all in it. Brimo finally rewarded anyone that actually held on to him. It was quite sick. For people like Joshy, who went Brimson to Teddy, Brimo scored a double, set a couple up, had a couple line break assists. He was sort of everywhere. It was a bit of a classic performance from Brumo, so 91 points for him. Mofo scored. Peachy was really good. Peachy sort of looks like a bit like the Watson mould Bogan. He's probably gone under the radar a bit, and I don't know if you can pick him in Classic just because of his price. But yeah, he's playing that around that 45-minute to 50-minute mark. His base wasn't as much on the weekend, but he's a little bit of a sneaky. He's turned into that new modern day lock where he comes on with a few tired forwards on the field and runs a bit of a muck out there. So yeah, he looks pretty good. A lot of people, I think, were relying on Fogarty. Yeah, I think he was saved by the fact he kicked, was it 8 from 8? So 32 points added to his score there. Otherwise, didn't have really any involvement in any attacking stats. Maybe a line break assist, one line break assist. Tino was nothing special, but again, pretty good score considering he didn't do too much. Again, had a line break in there, but no other major attacking stats. And I'm really scared as a non-Tino owner. I know there's a lot of people trying to get off him or whatever, but every time I watch the Titans, I just get scared because I just think this bloke's not far away from barging over for a couple of meaties and a big score as a result. Cowboys side, yeah, I think they're going to do it tough. Obviously, Lolo's still out, Bogues, and they're going to possibly lose Morgan, medical retirement. Val was really good at fullback. They had a late switch there with Drinkwater going into the halves with Clifford, with Morgan ruled out. Val did look pretty good at times, but otherwise just pretty disappointing across the park for them, and they don't really have a lot of relevant Supercoach players, if I'm honest. And as long as guys like Lolo are out, it's sort of pretty hard to pick any of the players in the back line or anything if they don't have any good go forward. So yeah, really good from the Titans, and we'll see. They've got a big test up against Canberra this weekend, so it'll be good to see how they prove themselves against a stronger side.
They're still.
So that was the round I was. We will see, Bogues. Have you watched that documentary, Building Titans?
No, I haven't.
It's interesting. I don't know. It's on KO. It's a 4-part series. You're probably not interested because it is the Titans.
Mate, is that documentary? Should it be over yet? Because the Titans have yet, like, one game that's not a success make, and
Oh no, but it talks about how they haven't started as a club very well and how they're trying to build to be something, not just an extra team in the comp, but try and win a comp, I guess, and what they're trying to do there. It was quite good as just a general rugby league fan. Night, Matty Levita. Have a good one, mate. No worries. Cheers for joining in. But yeah, anyway, Tino's looking good, and yeah. Titans onwards and upwards.
Get fucked. It doesn't matter if they win fucking 3 in a row. 3 premierships in a row, I'll still call them shit.
Oh, look, there's a big test for him, and I'm pretty keen to see how David Fifita goes in the next couple of weeks. Probably before we lost on the weekend, I would have said they had a next couple of games a little bit tougher with Canberra and then Newcastle. And then they play Manly, South, Brisbane, Tigers. So it's a pretty good draw. I'm actually stinging about Fifita because I had him for most of the pre-season like I did with Pappy, and now I'm just absolutely kicking myself. But I think there was plenty of people that captained him as well. Benny in the chat captained him as well, so that was a good call. But Fifita's looking amazing. He's just so super coach friendly, that bloke. So anyway, that was round 3, Bogues. It was absolutely marred by injury. I'm sure there's a whole heap of injuries and HIAs that happened and all that sort of stuff.
There's lots of talk about rule changes and whether they should revert the old rules back to...
I mean, my opinion with that, Bogan, is like, for instance, you look at a couple of the HIAs on the weekend that reduced Canberra and Cronulla, say 2 men at the same time. You look at the Ryan James, Seb Chris, and then also I think it was Nakora and also Wade Graham. Those things happening so early in the game aren't a result of,
sloppy technique. due to fatigue.
No, it's not. It's not because they're
Yeah.
fatigued. It's just sometimes these unlucky things happen. I do think, and even Joey Tapines, it was sort of early in the game. He was just sort of jogging backwards, and it was like he got sniped. It looked like he did an Achilles. These things are. There's still going to be those freak accidents and that sort of thing. And yes, I do think at certain times, because of the speed of the game, players are fatigued, and under fatigue, you might make poorer decisions, or your judgment's not as good. You put your head in the wrong spot, or whatever it is. But I think I heard Cooper Cronk say it on the post-match, whatever it was they had on Fox there, that you got to look at the data and look over the last couple of years since they've introduced these new rules and how many times has this happened. And it's probably not going to be too many. I don't think the percentage increase compared to previous seasons in terms of players being ruled out is, well, having this many players ruled out in a couple of games has really ever happened before. But I do think because we're so much stricter on the HIA that we're more inclined to not let a guy go back on than we have been in the past. And I think just as a result of the focus on the HIAs and the strict protocols around what they have to meet, or if they're knocked unconscious for any amount of time they're not able to return, that's probably playing a big part as well. And that's sort of something that just keeps on being stricter and stricter each season. So yes, I do think the speed of the game has a part to it, but I also think that there's also freak accidents. But the way we're sort of policing the HIAs just has a big part to play in it as well. Obviously, anything.
Oh, and there's an argument that could be made. Depth is part of building a football team, and if teams don't have the depth to deal with a few players being out, well, that's an issue that those clubs need to address. So
yeah, and obviously you look at the Roosters. I think they've come out and they're trying to claim something or other. I haven't really paid too much attention to that noise. I don't really generally like to, but
well, they're the Roosters, so they'll probably get it.
Different set of rules, but you're right. That's part of running a footy club. You got to have depth. That's why you have 30-man squads and that sort of thing. And injuries play a part in whether you can win a comp or not. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. I can't see this new rule being relevant unless they tweak it a little bit. But yeah, obviously plenty skeptical about the rorting. But let's see what happens before we make any more drastic changes. But we've introduced things like a 2-point field goal.
The 2-point field goal. Like, no one is fucking accepting that shit. Like of all the shit that you could change about the game, no one was asking for 2-point fucking field goals. That's some fucking rugby union fucking SAFA fucking bullshit that bloke's bringing into the game. What's his name? And it's like, no, fuck that shit.
Yeah, I don't like the 2-point. I know a lot of people think it's good and interesting and might pique a few people's interest. I don't think it's going to happen too often, but I don't like that sort of thing. I think we're ruining the fabric of the game.
It's gimmicky shit. And
do it in the nines and shit like that, but not in this format. Like, imagine your team slots a field goal in a grand final to go ahead by 1 with 2 minutes to go, and it's going to be a courageous victory, and then all of a sudden someone slots a 50-meter field goal and you lose by a point.
Well, it's not
because it was a 2-point field goal.
Well, you remember going back to the Union. You remember Johnny Wilkinson in the World Cup. That just that's why Union. That's one of the reasons I don't like Union. Is the 3-point field goals just makes fucking. If you've got one guy who's good at kicking field goals, well, he's just going to fucking sit there and do that all fucking day. And that's fucking boring to watch. And I'd hate to see rugby league go down that path because...
it's 40 out, so it's still it's a big effort. It doesn't happen often. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's a slippery slope, which I know it's a slippery slopes are a fallacy, but fucking... What's next? Fucking the danger zone? The first 20 minutes of the game is the danger zone. Points are doubled. Like,
what is it? Volcano of Gladiators comes out, and if he hits you, you got to go off for 5 minutes or something. Anyway, moving on. That was the round that was. Coming up to round 4, Bogues. What do we got? So we kick it off. So Easter long weekend as well. So we'll get some footy on the Monday. But yeah, with Easter coming up, should be a cracking weekend of footy. And to start off, we have potentially an absolute slaughter on our hands with the Sea Eagles taking on Penrith. Still, Cleary's back, so that's a big in for everyone. And I think a few people are looking at Cleary for a VC this week. Really good matchup. Obviously, Dylan Edwards will be out for a number of weeks due to the broken hand. Bogue, so Stephen Crichton has been shifted to fullback, and Matt Burton, who played in the halves predominantly, will be playing at centre. So it'll be interesting to see that combination. I imagine Burton will play on that left side with Luai and Kikau and Tu'u. So that'll be really interesting. I think there's a few people looking at Crichton now that he's playing fullback, and he looks like he might have it for about a month or so, Bogues. So he's coming in to be an interesting pod for the next few weeks. Penrith draw is not too bad either, Bogues. So a few people looking at Crichton. I think he's a nice, interesting little pickup. And what's he priced at? 460k. So he's not ultra expensive. He's got a 61 break even. They play the Eagles this week. And I think, where is it? CR? What's the next 4 weeks look like for? Then they play Canberra, Brisbane, Newcastle, and you probably get Edwards back shortly after that. So it'll be a little bit loose maybe, but we'll see what happens. Other ones from that one, I don't think any massive changes otherwise. The Eagles are really missing AFB. I think Bogues obviously no Turbo again this week. But yeah, they're just... Paseka looks really good, Tapau looks really good, but there's something not right there. I don't know if it's more on the edges. I think their 1 to sort of 5 is pretty weak, if I'm honest. So out on those edges, they're really liable. And then when you've got new guys rotating into the back row like they have at the moment, it makes it a little bit tough. So I think they're a bit weak on the edges, and I imagine what Schuster played on the left. So he won't get the attention of that dangerous left edge, but I don't think Gacheski was very good on the weekend either. So left edge of Penrith could be up for a field day again this week, but also possibly the right. Charlie Staines will be a play if you've held on to Charlie. Give him a run this week. But yeah, again, Panthers. So many Panthers players are just Supercoach friendly. Get them in. You probably can't do too wrong, Bogues. Yeah, moving on to the Friday, we've got a bit of an early.
Sorry,
game.
Brenner, can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, James Fisher-Harris. Should I hold on to him? Direct advice.
The Fish. Ooh, Fisher-Harris. Yeah, he's been interesting. He wasn't too bad in his first couple of weeks, Bogue. 61-74. His minutes are, he played 61 in round 1 and then 51 in rounds 2 and 3. I don't know. It's sort of weird on the week on last week because there was a heap of base out there. That wasn't like there was a high scoring game, and he wasn't needing to be doing much out there. So he's a bit of an odd one. Dropped a little bit of money, not too much. Break even of high 60s. So it's a bit of a luxury trade. I think if you're trading him out, there's probably better options around. If you've got some cash sort of stashed, maybe you could go from someone like him to a Fafita, or I don't know, if you don't have a Barnett or something like this. I don't know who you have and haven't got. Where have you got him?
I'd have to check, but I think I've got him next to Paulo.
Yeah, look, there's probably a few other options around.
Well, I was thinking so Payne Haas is returning this week.
He is. I reckon you might want to hold off on Payne for a week just to see what happens. He might be in for a bit of a price plunge as well, Bogues. But, I mean, you're probably going to get him in. He's set and forget. He's 670k, so he's not cheap. He's probably only going to play 60 minutes, I think, this year. But, I mean, if you've got the cash there, I still think you might be better off with someone like Clemmer or
I do have
TPJ.
a couple. I'd have to look up my team, but I do have a couple of jewels as well, so I could swap him around and move someone into the back row as well. So it's something I'm thinking about, but I might leave him for a week, see how he goes.
It's sort of hard. Like, I'm one of his biggest fans, I think, but he's just so... you don't know what you're going to get with him anymore. Like, there was a couple seasons back where he was awesome, but now he's just sort of real hit and miss, and the minutes are a bit of a concern. Like, 50 minutes isn't bad, but for for a guy at that price, and you're probably picking him as sort of like a premium, underpriced premium almost. You need better than 39, unless there's an injury or something like that. And there's a few mouths to feed in that Penrith pack, if I'm honest. Like, they've got a pretty strong bench. You've got Spencer, Matt Eisenhuth, and Liam Martin all coming off the bench, potentially playing minutes in the middle. I know sort of Martin spells kick out at times, but Leota's in there, Yo's out there playing big minutes. There's only if you think about it, you've got two props and a lock bogan. Obviously, you got your hooker, but what's that? 80 minutes times, say, 3. So there's only 240 minutes out there for some middlemen to play. And if Yo's playing 80 of those minutes, there's a third of it chopped up. He possibly doesn't see too much of an increase with guys like Matty Eisenhuth that can have big motors. And Spencer seems to be playing all right minutes with Leota as well. So, yeah, I was tempted to start with him at the start of the year, but I'll be looking elsewhere. If you can, it is a bit of a luxury trade, but if you can't, it's not the end of the world. I still think he's going to be good for sort of 50 to 60 majority of the time, and last week was just a bit of a blip for some reason.
Fair enough.
So I don't think that made your decision any easier. That do with that what you will. And obviously Schuster Bugs, the only other one, Schuster, if you don't have him, probably bring him in. I'm not sure how I'm going to get him in because I got Hoy, and I don't have anyone else really to trade him out for. So, but I think get Schuster in if you don't know where he is, you've been living under a rock. But yeah, Schuster's where it's at.
Oops, that's the wrong one.
4 o'clock on Friday. We're treated to a bit of an early game on Good Friday, Bugs.
Yeah.
So Doggies taking on the Bunnies.
This could be ugly as well.
And if Thursday night was going to be a slaughter, then potentially this one will be just as much of a slaughter. In fact, all the first 3 games to open the round will be slaughters, potentially. So Dogs taking on the Bunnies at Stadium Australia at 4 o'clock. So it should be a cracker to have some footy early on the Friday. Yeah, as you said, could be a slaughter. Get all the Bunnies in that you can. You got guys like Latrell, Alex Johnson, Cody Walker in particular. They just look lethal out on that left edge. They stood the Chooks up big time, Latrell and Cody in particular. And I think you should be doing everything you can to get a little bit of piece of that left edge.
Yeah. They've just got it across the fucking park against the Bulldogs. If you just look at those lineups there. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know some of the forwards have been a little bit disappointing, in particular Cam Murray. Damien Cook hasn't set the world on fire, but this could be the sort of game that the Bunnies could score 40 or 50 points, in my opinion, if the weather's nice and it's a good track. And it could be a day out for a few of them. So, yeah, nothing against the Dogs, but, if the Rabbits put it on the Roosters last week, I don't think the Dogs are going to be doing well to stop them this week. Corey Allen's been shifted to the wing for the Dogs. I don't know that that's really going to do too much for him. Nick Meaney at fullback. Lachlan Lewis comes into the side. Averillo has been dropped. Supercoach wise, yeah, I'm not entirely sure how relevant anyone is going to be in that Dogs side. You got Jerry Marshall King, who suffered a foot ligament injury apparently and will be out for 6 to 8. So you got Sione Katoa starting at 9. I don't know if Jackson Tapine is a hooker, but maybe you could see some big minutes for Sione Katoa potentially for the next 4 to 6. But yeah, no changes in the Rabbits 17, so they'll be primed and ready to go. And yeah, as I said, I am personally looking at getting Cody Walker in Bogues because I think the Bunnies have a really nice run coming up starting with this game. I'm not sure I'll be able to enjoy watching this game if I don't have Walker. So isn't cheap, 659k, but it will potentially be worth it at this point. I know Logan myself, I was hopeful to bring in Schuster and Walker this week. But I think ultimately I'm just going to have to miss the cash grab of Schuster because at the end of the day points are what win you these comps and as much as the cash grab will be nice if I've got the money there to bring Cody Walker in, I've got to do it.
As I mentioned previously, I brought in Keary last week, so he's just too much money to leave sitting for a week.
Well, yeah, I think obviously he's not going to be back, so he still would have made a bit of cash, which is nice. But if you can transition to someone like Cody, or somehow get a Latrell in, depending on what your fullbacks are looking like,
not
I think,
touching the fullbacks, mate. Got the Pappy, and the fucking Pappy and Teddy connection in the fullbacks, so no room
yeah,
for Latrell.
yep. So yeah, Arrow has been pretty good again, not getting huge minutes. Only played 40 on the weekend, pumped out 63 points, 51 in base. Awkwardly priced at just under 500k. I don't know if you'll be looking at him at this point, but yeah, just get any of those bunnies 1 to 7. I think, and you're probably going to be sweet this
Except
week.
Gagai.
Maybe Gagai in particular, he might get a hat trick.
He's one of those fucking players. He's a nightmare to fucking have in your team.
He is, even in drafts, it's difficult to have him.
Score nothing, and then he'll score a hat trick.
Yes. So, and then the second game on the Friday will be potentially another massive slaughter.
Oh, mate, this is the bloodiest week in rugby league in a long way. It's shaping up to be.
Well, as long as the rain doesn't affect the games like it did, was it last weekend, round 2? Because we had some really nice matchups there, but that was all affected by rain. But I think it's going to be a cracking weekend this weekend. But yes, we'll go to Anning Park in Melbourne on Friday night. Pappenhausen is back, so owners will be delighted to see that. In particular, big game for him to be back. Kafusi's still out in that one, so Eisenhuth still fills into the back row there. I think they're relatively unchanged apart from that. So Harry Grant is an outside chance but hasn't been named, so I'd say Harry Grant might be back next week. But yeah, lock up on Munster and Pappenhausen if you've got him in Classic. I think Pappenhausen as captain is a real possibility. Even Munster, I think if you're going to look at one of those first 2 games that are VC, those guys are potentially good captaincy options, Pappenhausen in particular. The Brisbane side of the field, Supercoach-wise, Asarko's had a blinding start to the season, but it is really hard to pick him coming up against the Melbourne side, and their draw isn't too crash hot for the next 4 weeks really. So if you think about Brisbane's next 4 games, they play the Storm, Souths, Penrith, Parramatta. But Asarko's had a nice rise, and 90 odd K, and he also has a really big negative break even. But yeah, I think it's really hard to pick him coming into this week unless you're really stuck and you want someone that's definitely going to make cash. He'll make some cash, but Payne Haas returns. Obviously, Matt Lodge returns as well, so add a bit of starch in the middle. For how long, I don't know. Whether at the end of the day, it won't really matter potentially, but a few bodies there, and Tavita Pangai Jr. has been benched, pretty interestingly, Bogan. So he's on a lot of people's radar. I know we mentioned him a little bit earlier.
I don't think he'll be sitting on the bench for long, though.
I don't expect it'll affect his minutes. He hasn't played over 60 minutes yet this season, so he's still probably going to play that 50 to 60 minute mark anyway, and still does what he does, whether he comes on after 10 minutes or 15 minutes and then plays the next 30 or 40 or whatever it'll look like. I don't think you have to be too worried about it if you're an owner or anything like that, but he is a premium price at sort of just under 650k, but a relatively low BE, so he could continue to climb in price, and he could be someone that you might look at, but yeah, they're going to need him to be at his best and add a lot of impact coming off the bench for them. Matty Lodge is back. I've sort of held Matty Lodge, so I think I'll have another look at him, Bogues, just to see whether he's worth holding on to. He's only playing his 2nd game, so I'll see what he's like, and if he's no good, I'll jump ship next week to someone else, through some jewels maybe. Otherwise, I might be forced to play Ricky. I don't think I'll play Tessie, but this is the sort of game you don't play Tessie and he scores a try and scores 60 or 70. I can just see it now, but yeah, a lot of pressure on Brisbane. This is their first really big test of the year, and coming off the back of their win last week, maybe they'll be up for a bit of a contest, at least initially, but I don't know if they're going to be able to hold on for the whole 80. They were really bad against the Titans in the second half, and they're coming up against a much different beast in Melbourne this week, so we'll see what happens. First game on. Well, we only have the two games on the Saturday because we'll have the Easter Monday game. So first game on the Saturday will be the 5:30 slot, and make sure you don't have any other plans because it's an absolute blockbuster with Cronulla taking on the Cowboys.
I just hit the pool tables for this one. If you're down the pub.
Yeah, look, mentioned there probably wasn't a heap of relevance on the Cowboys side of the field, Supercoach wise. They have dropped Jake Clifford and Essan Masters, which is interesting, and Dunn's out with a foot injury. So we have a youngster. Is he a youngster? Ben Condon. Don't know too much about him starting on the edge and hasn't played yet. So he's a bottom dollar guy. I don't know what his security will be like. Obviously, Dunn's out. Dunn's out for maybe just the week. But maybe keep your eyes on Condon to see how he goes. He might be a bit of a cheapy option in the second row if he somehow finds a few weeks, but I don't know if that's going to happen, especially if Lolo's due back in the next couple of weeks. What's Val doing? I think you've got to have a look at Val. It's not a bad option and not a bad matchup for Val. To be fair, the Cowboys' next 3 weeks are Cronulla, the Tigers, and the Dogs. So, I mean, Val at 489k. He kicks goals. He's only got a 40 break even. You know, they don't have a terrible run. If he's playing fullback, he has been named at fullback. He's possibly worth a sneaky look. It's a bit of a luxury trade maybe at this point of the season. Maybe if it was later in the season, it might be an easier trade to make, but possibly Val's a little bit relevant for the next couple of weeks, Bogues. If you're looking for someone.
He's Val's dual position, isn't he?
He is, so you can pick him in the centre wings. On the Tigers side of the field, I don't think...
You keep calling the Sharks. This is the second week in a row you've referred to the Sharks as the Tigers.
Is it? There you go. Maybe a merger.
They have been fairly interchangeable in the modern era.
There you go. Hiroti will take Katoa's spot, so Katoa looks like he's going to be out for a little while with the MCL and possibly 4 to 6 weeks. Nakura's got the 2-week ban for a shoulder charge, so Tej, I think it's Tej Wilton, will start in his spot. Wilton, geez, again, it's sort of hard because he's only going to play a couple of weeks. He played 62 minutes on the weekend. I don't know if he's going to play 80. You might get a rise out of him. He's 250k, so he's not bottom dollar. So you might want to have a look at him this week, and if he has a good game this week, he might be a little bit of a cash grab for a week. But with Nakora coming back, I don't see too much long-term longevity in him. And then after that, again, it's just too hard to get a read on him. He didn't play round 1 and 2, so I'm not entirely sure if he's worth bringing in. And Talakai hasn't made the side as well, so I don't know how far away Talakai is either, but I expect once he is back and fit, he would generally fill a spot like that and possibly plays his way into the side as well. So a bit of competition there for Wilton. Don't know if he'll be relevant. Connor Tracy is an interesting one. He's been named at centre at Bogan. He's a guy that you can pick in duality in the halves. He dropped a little bit of cash, so he's at 234k and has a 28 break even. Maybe in some world you could pick him up if you're struggling. I mean, he's really quick. He's probably dangerous. He's not really a centre, but if you're struggling for something, maybe you can have a look at Connor Tracy in the halves at a bit of a discounted price. But yeah, I don't know how long he's going to be playing centre for. I find that one a bit strange. Otherwise, I'm just looking there if there's any other smokies kind of going under the radar. Not really. I think there's enough relevant guys in the centre wings that you don't need to be looking at guys like Hiroti. Tuilagi had a pretty good game last week, Bogues. I think it was his first game as well. How do you spell that? Tuilagi. Taulagi. I don't know how you spell half of these. He scored 71 points, so he's 237k if he can sort of cement the wing spot. But I think he's only there while Felt's out, so again, I don't know how relevant he'll be. Won't talk too much more about that one, I don't think. Moving on to the second game on the Saturday, it could be a good game this one. The Titans taking on the Raiders up at Cbus. Yeah, as mentioned, obviously Dave
Yeah,
Fafita's
is
just
this the game they're talking about potentially might need to be moved?
no idea, is it?
I believe there's one. There's a game in Queensland that they are keeping an eye on the vid situation that might get located
Okay.
down to Sydney.
Yeah, I know they were talking about relocating Brisbane into New South Wales in the short term, but yeah, I hadn't heard about this one, but would make sense. Um, yeah, Dave Fafita's obviously the biggest one to mention in this one. If you started the year with him, he's been an absolute massive pickup, and he is looking like he could be really, really Supercoach relevant. He's back-to-back tons. Um, we will find out if he's match-up proof this weekend. So he's obviously played some shitter competition the last 2 weeks in the Broncos and the Cows, but to be fair, he's at a new club, new combinations, and already he's done some pretty amazing things. But he's just such a damaging ball runner. Every time he runs the ball, he's busting tackles. He's got an offload, and he's quick. If he gets a bit of space, he's an absolute handful. So he's got a really low break even. If you don't get him on this weekend, he could be. If he blows up again this week, he could be looking at near 700k. Next week. So it's almost now or never. I was sort of hoping Barnett might have been ruled out, and I would have just probably flicked over to Fafita, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get Davey, and I'm absolutely sick because he was one of the ones I thought I was pretty solid on to start the year and didn't start with him. But otherwise, you've got Brimo still there. I don't know if a lot of people are going to have Brimo or still have him because of the scenario last week with the big high break even and the price. A lot of people transitioned to Teddy and maybe Latrell or Pappy if they didn't have him. So that's an interesting one. Fogarty again, plenty of eyes on Fogarty to see how he goes. There'll be people depending on his scores. Tino has switched to prop with Tyrone Peachy named at lock, so that's interesting to see how that goes and what Peachy's role is there. And I don't know if Tino's minutes are going to be affected by that or whatever, but it's going to be interesting to see Peachy's role. On the Raiders side, Seb Chris will take the spot of Curtis Scott. So I think Curtis Scott did a rib pretty early last week as well, actually. So he'll be replaced by Seb Chris, who was knocked out last week. Should be good to go. Hudson Young looks to be back. Dynamis Louis back. Ryan James is back. So a few guys back. And this could actually be a really good game of footy potentially. And maybe one of the better games of the round, given all the other slaughters that look like they're going to be on the table. Supercoach-wise, have you missed the boat on guys like Ryan James at this point? Obviously, last week helped non-owners because he didn't see such a big increase. So it's sort of thrown the sample out a little bit, a couple 60s and then a 5. You can probably still jump on. You might make a little bit of steady cash now. He might be a bit of a plotter. We'll have to see. With guys like CHN and Horsburgh still not in the side, it's sort of not sure what his role will be once those guys are getting picked or how he fits into the side. But maybe Havili and Soliola drop out for CHN and Horsburgh once they're back, because I don't know, to me that probably makes the most sense. Otherwise, I think people that's allowed Hodgson will be riding Hodgson. It's sort of interesting, they've produced some good Supercoach points in the last couple of weeks, Bo. So Hodgson's looking like he's going to make some good cash now. Anyone that started with him has done really well. Georgie Williams has had a really good opening month of footy, really. Has made some decent cash and another pretty low break even. And another game you might hope he just pumps out a 60 or a 70 and look to offload him the week after as their draw gets a little bit more difficult maybe. But yeah, it's going to be an absolute cracker, I reckon. Looking forward to that one, and we'll know Henry Perenara as the refs. So Canberra might be sweet. On the Sunday, it is Newcastle, my boys, taking on the Dragons.
This potentially could be a good game as well.
It could. The Dragons have started well, but obviously, they played the Cowboys and the Eagles. Ben Hunt is out with a fractured fib, so he won't play. Adam Clune will take his spot, but I think they're otherwise unchanged. changed? Are they unchanged? Williami's been promoted into the centre spot because Jack Bird was suspended. Newcastle side of the park, Bradman Best is still out and he won't be in the side. So at this point, Gemat Shitasaki, as he was called on the weekend. I don't know what's going on with Blake Green being named in the 17. In my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Kurt Mann shifted into Shibasaki's centre spot and Blake Green moved into the 6 just before game day. I'm not sure who would slide onto the bench there. Maybe someone like Brodie Jones finds his way on the bench as a result of that. But yeah, it could be a game of footy. Dragons in a little bit of form, riding a bit of a high. Corey Norman's playing some good footy, believe it or not. Still no Ponga, so yeah, I've got a bit of a situation, Bogan, where I thought I was easily going to go Tex Hoy to Schuster, but Tex Hoy's got a pretty big negative break even, and I don't know if I can get off him this week, so I might just have to miss it and get on Hoy to Schuster next week. I know I'll miss the most of Schuster's price rise, but hopefully it sort of bleeds Hoy out of as much as I can make out of him and continue making money through Schuster, and Schuster probably has some more steady points as well. I mean, I could go Hoy to Schuster this week and bank 120k and then get a big rise out of Schuster and possibly play him, be a bit more confident in playing him, but I'm still not sure about that one. Barnett should be good to go. It'll be a bit of a clanker if he gets ruled out late because it is the Sunday game, but maybe just make sure you got a reserve that you can maybe put him as one of your reserves if you're not going to captain him. I can't imagine he'll be a captaincy option, so make sure he's not. If you're playing an extra back rower and you're scoring 17, just chuck him on the bench with the R, because if there's a late withdrawal, maybe you can switch to a Fuimono or someone playing in the Roosters Warriors game. Maybe if you've got Sam Walker, maybe a Sean O'Sullivan when we get there. That could be someone that you switch to, but just keep eyes on team lists and news over the next couple of days for Barnett. And have you got anything else to mention on the Bulldogs? Rolling into the second last game, on the Sunday, because we've got the Monday. Yeah, been an interesting one at the SCG Sunday evening with the Roosters taking on the Warriors. Warriors playing some good footy in the first couple of weeks. They were sort of probably pipped at the post by us last week, but this could be a good one. Obviously, most notably, no Keary out for the season, so Sam Walker gets his highly anticipated debut, folks, and plenty of people will be watching this one, and plenty of super coaches will be looking at.
And anyone who's like me who brought in Keary, Sam Walker's not a bad option if you want to free up some cash for elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure if he was going to get named personally. I thought they might have gone Manu to 6 and Drew Hutchinson at 7 because they might not have wanted to run with a completely new, inexperienced halves combination. But at this stage, that's what they've done. There's not a lot of games of experience there in that halves combo, but I guess when you've got guys like Teddy and the backline that they do have, and even the forwards that they do have, I mean, a bit of inexperience at the 9 as well. So some pretty key positions there if you think about the 9. 6, 7 of the Roosters. There's not a lot of games there, but obviously you don't need to say much about the rest of the side. So plenty of people sort of sceptical on Teddy and whether he's still relevant because he's now not running off Keary or whatever. These guys aren't in the side, so there's maybe a bit more eyes on Teddy. I personally don't see any issues with having Teddy. One of my thoughts was you could go Teddy to Pappy as a non-Pappy owner just purely because Melbourne have a really good draw over the next few weeks and Pappy looks really good, but I don't think I could sleep at night not having Teddy just purely because there's not really any other player apart from Cody Walker in the comp that has the ceiling of Teddy. Yes, we've seen 120 from Pappy this season, but yeah, I think I had a look last year. Keary didn't play 2 games for the Roosters, and in those 2 games, Teddy scored a 61 and 176. Granted, that 176 was against the Broncos. I mean, it is what it is. It's a freakish performance. So no issues there, but Let's see. Really interested to see how Sam Walker goes. Interestingly, on the other side of the field, Bogues, you've got Sean O'Sullivan playing his second game. He scored 71 points on the weekend, and he was looming as a possible short-term option before young Walker got a run. It'll be interesting to see how he goes this week as to whether he's like going to be a decent cash grab. If he pumps out another 50 or 60 somehow this week, he could be better than Walker, depending on how Walker goes. We're yet to see what Walker will do, what his involvement will be like. Obviously, there's huge raps on him, but there's a lot of pressure on him as well. So really interested to see how he goes. Radley's back for the Chooks as well, so that's a big in for them. Obviously, with the inexperience they have in the halves, they get something back with Radley being out on the field.
It's scary there for Radley. First week back, he does his shoulder again.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how he goes. Lindsay Collins is out. He's been massive for them in the first couple of weeks. I think he's been one of their best forwards, to be honest. He just looks awesome this year. So he's out as well. So Isaac Liu will fill into his prop spot with Radley starting at lock. And Ikavalu finds his way onto the bench. It looks like, I'm not entirely sure if anyone in the chat knows what's happened with Lamb. I know he went down with an injury, but I just think he looked terrible, to be honest. In a Chook side that was just putting teams to the sword up until they played Souths, he was just a passenger. He was absolutely terrible. So I don't know if Walker getting a run in particular is aided by the fact that Lamb copped an injury. I thought it was an MCL or something like that. But it'll be interesting to see how that sort of evolves over the next few weeks and whether Walker starts well. I don't think Walker's necessarily a trade-in straight away. I think you can wait a week or two and see how he goes. Unless you're really desperate, you could possibly throw the R on him and hope that he starts his career really well. But yeah, should be a big game for him Sunday evening. Warriors side of the park, Bogues. Peter Hiku will be out for about a month. Is it a month? So Marcelo Montoya will make his debut for the Warriors. And Bailey Sirenen's been promoted into the starting second row spot with Tohu shifting back to lock, with Jazz sliding back to the bench, but it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a late jig with Sirenen back to the bench, Tohu to 12 and Jazz into the back row. Adam Fanua-Blake Bogan, he was good on the weekend. I know he scored a try. But again, I don't know, it's sort of a little bit hard to pick him. He's at 530k, I think he'd be a pretty good pod. But yeah, he's just sort of going to be a bit hard for his price and the minutes he plays. I'm a big fan, love watching him, but if he could just play like 60 minutes, he'd be a beast. But he's just such a big boy, I don't think he'll have it in him. But yeah, there's probably going to be times he's added a fair bit to that Warriors pack, I reckon. They're going to be dangerous this season. I know the Raiders absolutely give it to them until they have a few of those injuries, but they're looking not bad. So this could actually not be too bad of a game of footy as well, when you consider the injuries in the Chooks halves and also the Warriors in a little bit of form.
Tell you what, the Warriors would be awfully happy if they could get through the Raiders and the Roosters with a couple of wins.
Yeah, well, this is a big test for them. I know they got beaten by us and they just fell over the line last week, but yeah, big test for them. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if there'll be a lot of people with the C still available on Teddy or who's going to stick strong, but the C on Teddy could be a bit of a pod captain move this week, believe it or not. I just think when you consider Panthers playing the Eagles, South's playing the Dogs and Storm playing the Broncos, a lot of those VC and C options will be used up by then, and maybe just leave it on Teddy and see what he does. And in the last game of the round, Easter Monday, so we get some footy on Easter Monday, which is good. The Tigers taking on Parramatta. Again, potentially could be a good game if the right Tigers side show up, folks.
That's very questionable whether the right Tigers team will show up.
Or whether the wrong Parramatta side show up. Look, I sort of said it today. I don't think Parra have been overly impressive. I know they've won all their games, and it might sound a bit funny, but I still think they're working away at some of those new combinations with the switch of the back rows and the halves on the edges. on the Parramatta side of the field, a big in with Madison, and obviously Supercoach relevance. That's pretty massive. So anyone that held Maddo, he is back. He's faced with a really big BE. I got off him last week just given the concussion history that he has. I wasn't sure. He's a big price. He's sort of upwards of 650k with 130 odd break even. So, he potentially faces a big money drop, and I'm not entirely sure if he's the same player this year playing on the edge as he was last year. Probably want to have another good look at him, and I'm just not sure. He probably won't get picked in Origin, so he's probably looming as a guy you need for that round 12 bye. But you're probably going to get him at a bit of a discounted rate in a week or two, and maybe if he goes back to churning out consistent 70s and 80s, you can have another look at him in maybe 2 or 3, 4 weeks, potentially, Bogues. So eyes on him. I don't think it's terrible if you got him. It's not a must trade out, but I just, personally traded him out last week. And, there's every chance he scores a try this weekend and scores 100 and proves me wrong. I think I was sort of saying, I think he did something similar last year, Bogues. He was ruled out for a period of time. And I think I traded him or something, and then 2 weeks later he turned up. So, he has the potential to score those hundreds or those 90s pretty easily, but that's a big in. Dane Laurie looks awesome for the Tigers. Has just been absolutely massive to start the year. I think he'll be cheapie of the year and also rookie of the year, just based on how he started the year. He's just so dangerous. Pops up all around the ball in the middle of the field. He's pretty tough. So really excited. I think he's a lock in your centre wings at this point of the year, and you can look at how you transition him out to a keeper centre wing, or maybe he is a bit of a Lomax or Kurt Mann of 2021. We will see. I did mention early on that I thought this is going to be one of the guys that's going to be hard to know when to get rid of him. Maybe it is that round 17 bye, because he will play round 12. I think you hold him all through there pending injuries, and then reassess come that round 17 bye, where he could be upwards of 500k potentially, depending on how he's going. But he looks amazing. So if you don't have him, you still haven't missed the boat, and I think get him in. What's Noah Faluma? Noah Faluma's 100 break even, 100 odd break even, 620k. So he didn't drop. He dropped about 50k, and depending on how he goes this week, he probably won't drop a heap. He could still pump out a 70 or 80 and still sit around that 600k mark. So he won't drop as much as we thought, just because he had a pretty good game last week. I think that Asu Kapaoa, the winger for the Tigers, is absolutely terrible. And that is Blake Ferguson's wing, and I think there's going to be an absolute field day out on that.
So what you reckon it might be Fergo's?
Is it left edge?
Might be Fergo's week.
Well, that or Nakora scores a hat trick because he doesn't pass. But I don't know. Kapoa hasn't really impressed me. He's good running with the ball, but he's got to catch it first, and he's a bit questionable in defence. So I'm looking at Fergo to produce, but hopefully someone tells Nakora during the week how to look to his right and pass. I know he set Fergo up for one of them on the weekend, but I think it was the only time he's passed in his first 2 games at centre to Fergo. I think Ray Stone might be in for a bit of a cash grab, but I don't know how relevant he's going to be. Obviously, he played his first game on the weekend and scored 62. He's a 200k, nearly bottom dollar, so maybe keep an eye on him. Played fuck all minutes. Probably won't be relevant, but maybe just keep a sneaky eye if he somehow manages to sneak some points. It might be a little bit of a sneaky for a couple of weeks there, but it's probably a terrible buy, to be honest. But yeah, a lot of people will be hoping, probably have guys like Junior Paulo, Gutho, probably Reid Marnie as well. So there's some points on offer in this game, folks. It could be a big finish to the round like we saw with the Cowboys and the Titans, and might determine a few big scores by the end of the year. It could be a big one for the Eels, possibly, if we're expecting to get on with it. The other one, just quickly, Bogues, on the Tigers side, I know it might sound crazy. Jacob Little, so he played 61 minutes on the weekend.
It's not too crazy. I've got him as my backup hooker.
Well, he played 61 minutes on the weekend, Bogues, and he's got a really low break even. But I'm looking at trading him this week. I just think with Moses and Bai in there, it's just all over the shop. He might, there might be a world where Bias for some reason goes into that 1 or that 6 or that 7 if they get an injury or whatever it is. But at the moment, I've got to trade someone out to get Cody Walker in, and I'm going to have to trade someone out to get Schuster in eventually as well. And this guy's the worst of them. As crazy as it sounds, they got Jaden Brayley and Little at hooker, and Tex Hoy and Connor Watson at 5'8". So out of all those guys, Little's the guy that's got to go. Just unsure on his minutes, and I think, I think he's going to go this week. So I am off him. As crazy as that might sound, yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, probably nothing amazing to mention in there, Bogues, I don't think.
No, it's probably not. It's probably not the best game to showcase the sport on a public holiday, but shit happens, I guess.
It'd be nicer if it was a bit earlier. Like, we're going to be getting ready for. It's nearly witching hour at my house, so sort of could have made it a 2 o'clock game or something. Anyway, it is what it is. Won't complain with some footy, but yeah, look, there's probably heaps of smokies going under the radar, but I probably reckon they're most of the relevant ones for the round at this point in time.
On to the leagues.
Onto the leagues, eh?
So first we'll start with the group scores for the week. So Matt with Mando, who was our player of the week, he scored 1,275.
Yeah, well done, Matty. Big score there, sitting 4.5k. So still having a pretty good year to start. I'm just looking at some of those overall rankings. Some people that are doing well that have had a good week as well. So shout out to Mana. He probably top scored the Invitational, I'd imagine. And Showashi Johnson, another great team name there. A couple of big scores, but well done everyone on the screen. Shout out to, well, we've got a couple ladies on the screen there as well. Christelle, I don't know if Christelle's a lady's name. Apologies, Christelle, if you're not.
You're assuming gender.
And
Justine.
No, Justine, the Mary Mama. So shout out ladies or lady if it's just Justine. Sorry, Christelle. And Badonkadonk. So Danos had I think Dan finished 15th overall last season, Bogue. So he's
on the charge back.
Trying a bit of form. He's looking to make a bit of a charge back to where he belongs. But yeah, well done everyone on that screen. Neat big scores, 1,200 pluses for the week. Good to see.
And I didn't size this one. Hold on, I'll fix that. And the overall, and I'll just sorry about this.
Couple of the boys still holding strong. Jetty's still up there, Polk champion. Shout out, mate, sitting 12th overall, 1,200. Really good score for being at that upper end. Pinging Thor's still floating around there as well with an 1190. So those boys looking to try and cement themselves in and around that.
And what
10.
is it to get the prizes? It's top 11, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, top 11.
So there you go. There you go, Jed. You're on the way, mate. You're on the way.
Yeah, and I mean it's pretty crazy. I think I heard something. It might be like, is it first to 1,000th? I'd be shooting from the hip, but there's more points from first to 1,000th than there is from 1,000th to 10,000th in the overall rankings. So there's a bit of a distance between the guys at the top and the back end of the top 1,000 compared to people sitting from about 1,000 to 10,000.
It's only round 4, mate. A lot can fucking happen, especially with those bye rounds coming into effect this year.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying it's a little bit different at this point. Like, so some of these guys like Jetty and Tristan and Jimbo, Siona, or anyone that's already in that position, they can really cement themselves if they just keep going some solid picks and nothing too. I mean, I would argue nothing too crazy, but I guess that's how you make your ground by going those different choices. But solid as still averaging 1,300, some of those guys. So monster starts of the year, boys. Well done.
And next up would be the BJ All-In. So top scorer for the week was Red Nose Dearden, John, with 12. Oh no, this is total score. My apologies. is John. He scored 12.51 for the week.
I'd imagine that's probably one of the top scores in that league anyway, boys, just based on
Oh yeah, sorry, it
the
is.
size
It
of
is
that.
last round score. Yeah. So he did top score 12.51.
So big score there for Johnny. Well done. And Frankie jumps in the chat a little bit as well, hoping Cogra.
Big score
That's a
from Crazy Pineapples Taylor. I know she was crowing on
yeah.
Twitter. I don't know
Well,
if
I
she's
think
still in the chat or whether she's taken off to, I don't
she'll
know,
be there. She'll be
go
wait.
to a nightclub
She'll be
or
wait.
make a latte or something.
Oh, she'll be there.
If she's still there.
She rolled me. I think I won 9 out of my 10 head-to-heads this week, and Taylor was the only one that rolled me. So shout out to Taylor with a good score, 11.97. Picked me with 11.86, and I did see you were plastering the victory over Twitter, and fair enough. Credit where credit's due. It looks like you haven't been listening to Joshy this season, based on how you're going so far. So good
Yeah.
job. And I think as long as you don't keep talking to Joshy, you should be right. So, cracking start with Taylor, and good to see you near the top there this week, and pretty decent ranking, and keep improving.
Yourself there in 4th position.
Yeah, yep.
And
I'll started worse. Take it.
and Troy with Humdinger rounding out the
Yep,
top
good stuff.
5.
Well done, all in leaguers.
The Invitational. Mana
Invitational.
with his 12.52 just pipped Dan with Badonkadonk. Benny I know is in the chat. He came in 3rd, following by Bundy, and then Big Ted.
Yep. Good to see.
Shout out to Big Ted. You were mentioning to me off air the other week that Big Ted wants to do a segment.
Yeah, I think he's got some stuff going on at the moment. Well, medical sort of stuff. So I think he's just on the recovery. And shout out to Big Ted, mate. I hope you're doing well with the recovery and all that sort of stuff. But I think he'll be in touch hopefully soon, and we can sort something out. Have something special in store for everyone with Big Ted involved.
I won't spoil it because we'll keep it as a surprise. But we've already got a name for it and everything. It sounds like it'd be a ripper of a segment.
Yeah, so looking forward to that one. Hopefully, we can get him all sorted, and he'll be fighting fit soon enough, I'd hope. And good to see him up on the board there as well. Big Teddy bouncing back with 11.87, and hopefully making a charge back in as well. But as I mentioned, Bogan, I mean, you have a look there. It's about 200, just over 200 points between Big Ted and Mana overall, and the ranking difference is quite significant.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of points, but it just shows how many people are crammed in that sort of 300 point range there. Even looking at Badonkadonk at 300 points out from Mana. There's a lot of.
I know I'm not anymore. Anyways.
And it just goes to show every point makes a big difference. Getting that captain right that might score an extra 30 or 40 could throw you, 500 or 1,000 places up the rankings potentially.
And on to the draft results for the week. So you got up over Wayno with Hell's Grannies. I got up over Tomo with Call Me Big Puppy. Adrian absolutely whooped Dr. Kayanto. I'm sure he'd be fucking happy about that. They're renowned rivals there, Adrian and Dr. Kayanto. So one day I might convince them both to get on the show at the same time. It'd be hilarious to watch the fireworks fly between those two.
I reckon I might just be a viewer that night and sit
so
back
someone's going to have their finger on the fucking button to make sure that we don't get kicked off of YouTube on that one, I reckon.
That's sweet.
Mana went down to Joshy with 786, which is a pretty decent score. And Benny went down to Trent. And then we go to the ladder. And the ladder is a stitch up. I'm telling you. Because Hampto's Hitman and Psycho Circus sitting at the top of the ladder.
Yeah, well, Joshy's, turning it back. It'll be only a matter of time before I start losing. I wouldn't be too worried about
Yeah,
that.
tell you
But
what, that's a
Trent,
hell of a points difference compared to everyone else.
yeah, it's a good start. I'll take it. Look, there's a long way to go, and there's a bit of a logjam down below. So I'm happy to not be in amongst that, and I'll be happy if I can keep winning and keep the donut up there. So yeah, let's see what happens. Interesting next couple of weeks with the fixtures. Kando struggling down the bottom there. Geez, that's a big negative break even. You don't want to leave the run too late, Kandos.
I see that we've been stitched up, Kano. We've been stitched up.
Look at you, dwellers. We'll see form as temporary, class as permanent,
Oh,
gentlemen.
mate,
See
especially
how
when
it
you rig the draw
unravels.
to.
Absolutely, and it's worked out absolutely brilliantly. I couldn't have
Oh,
planned it any
mate,
better.
it's a stitch up. You and Josh are going to take out the fucking premiership of the show that's named after you. Bit of a conflict of interest there, I reckon.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
And that's the wrong one. And that's it for the week. Anything else? Shout out to Adro. I know he's in the chat. We thought he was going to be busy tonight. We would have called him in otherwise, but he's got a podcast, Adrianosaurus Rex. As I said last week, it's a nice, short, snappy name that would be easy for anyone to find. But that's on SoundCloud, and so check out Adrian. He's got his weekly podcast that he's doing there.
Yeah, there was a good one-liner, the banana with eyes. I love that reference. So jump on and give it a listen. Also, shout out to our Turbo Hammies Cup league as well, Bogues. All the podcasters in there. One of the lads created a nice banner for the group as well that has all the list of all the different podcast channel logos on there.
Oh,
so
well, flick it to me next week. I'll put it up during the show.
yeah, I will. So shout out. There's a couple of boys at Kando and ADOS and a couple of guys in there on their own podcast shouting it out and also giving us some shout outs. So big shout out to all those guys. I couldn't name all of them off the top of my head, but we'll get that banner on and happy to promote any of those guys. We're all sort of one big happy community and it's a pretty cool league we've got going. So jump on and check that one out. And I managed to get a win in the head-to-head this week, so flying the flag high, and we'll take Kando and ADOS, even though ADOS is a bit of a gets around the podcast. I don't want to say the S word, but we'll take him as
a
VJ
representative.
He'll say no, that he's maybe one of the other ones, but maybe his own now. But we'll take him. But yeah, that's probably about it. Trades, Bogan. What are you thinking?
Well, obviously Kiri's gone. I'll probably bring in Walker just to make some quick cash. And then I'm not sure of
Sam Walker. We're gonna have to give him a name now. There's too many. There's Cody Walker. There's Sam Walker. There's Dylan Walker. We can't really give him the Sorker or the Corker or the Dorker. It doesn't really work.
Mate,
I don't know if you know how.
It's his fucking first game. Maybe he'll do something to get himself a nickname.
It'd be good if we can come up with some good nicknames for him, because I don't know if the Morris and the Joris and Boris works the same as for the Walkers, because it's just
Turbo and Gerbo. Right.
Maybe we just call them Sam, Cody, and Dylan, and we just know who everyone's talking about. But that's a bit boring.
Yeah.
But if anyone's got any ideas, chuck them in. Maybe it's just C walks, D walks, S walks. Walkers on though. I love the walkers on. There's got to be some walkers on this weekend for sure. So. Yeah, I reckon I'm looking at Little to Cody Walker Bogues, just quickly. Yeah. I think I've got to do that.
That'll be through various magic with jewels and stuff like that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I got Connor Watson at 5'8". He will slide up into the hooking position of Little that I'll trade out, and that will allow me to bring in Cody Corker, if that's what we're going to call him, Corker. And I'm not sure with the other trade. I'm really not sure. Obviously, I decimated my side in round one trying to loop Teddy, so maybe I try and jump on a Utoika Manu because he's still got a little bit of cash to make with one of the guys I nuffed, because I'm sort of hurting at the moment with some of those positions. I've missed a heap of rises from guys like Spencer, Lanu, Utoika Manu, Ryan James. So I'm just sort of got to recover that somehow, but I don't really like the trades. We'll see what happens.
Shout out
Oh
to
yeah,
Josh King when he fucking wakes up and watches the show and realises that he's fucking slept through it.
I like the Shockmaster suggestion: C dub, S dub, D dub. I like dub in the chat. I like the C dubs and the S dubs, but it's got to. Everyone's got to use it or it won't work. But the D dub there. Anything else
I
in
was
the
gonna
chat?
say,
You got anyone else in the chat?
anyone want to plug anything in the chat? You got a podcast? You've got a fucking league, or you've got something that you want to plug? You got a small business.
While we're talking, plenty of the guys are asking questions in the chat, and we're sort of glazing over because we're talking about other things. But I think everyone in our chat's pretty good, helping each other, which is good to see.
Mate.
And giving advice. So cheers to everyone that jumps in, and the guys like Ados and Benny and Kando and whoever it is that's. If I've missed anyone.
I'm starting to get suspicious that the chat doesn't even listen to the show anymore, mate. They just show up to chat to each other.
Yeah. So, thanks, Ados. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Thanks, mate. I'm a bit sceptical because I'm starting to lose it. I reckon I'm getting a bit of a Devon patch developing, so I'm a bit dubious about getting it cut.
You might have to go the fucking shaved head, mate.
I might have to go the skinhead. Taylor in lockdown for 3 days and could go for 30. Shout out Taylor. Hope it's not too bad. Hopefully you can sort out some trades in the next few days then, and you'll be right onwards and upwards.
Shout out to everyone who's in lockdown. Shit sucks. So hope you got plenty of toilet paper.
Jetty. Chat doesn't listen to the what now. Yeah, go and jump into Turbo's Hammy Zone, have a look at some of the head-to-head matchups. I don't know if you can look at them. I don't think it's a publicly viewable league. I don't really know how any of that works, but Kando's doing updates on previous week's head-to-heads. So there's plenty of banter in there, and all the guys in the chat that we have for that, they're really good guys. So yeah, it's
Taylor's suggesting
cool
that you bleach your hair blonde, Brent.
Bleach it blonde. Jeez, we should have had a bet on that on the head-to-head. I'm glad we didn't.
Well, Joshie's got nothing to fucking bleach.
I'll tell you what, if you finish higher than me overall this season, Taylor, I'll bleach it blonde.
Oh, shit.
So I don't know who's helping you or if anyone is helping you, but I'm prepared at this point in time.
I think fucking everyone's going to be helping her now.
So, look, I don't know where... Hang on, let me just...
With that being said, are you going to bleach the beard as well? Or
no,
are you going to do a Hollywood Hogan and just bleach the mustache and have the dark beard?
Geez, she's only about 160 points behind me, 170. So,
Shockmaster's asked captains this week. I was set and forget Teddy. I'm going to move Teddy to the bench and bring in Pappy and captain him.
Yeah, solid. I think, like we said, there's a few options around. Kando, I'm helping more game on Mole. Bring it on, bitch. So, yeah, obviously those first 3 games in particular, Teddy's still an option. But, yeah, it's awesome this week. Fuck, I've got everyone in the chat saying they're going to help. I'm in big trouble here.
Taylor's going to take out the whole thing. She'll be buying our plane tickets to fucking Queensland at the end of
If I don't do too well in the next couple of weeks, I will.
Well, all right. She wants to include the beard as well.
Oh, Jesus.
I say the beard and not the mo. As I said, it'd be the opposite Hollywood Hogan.
Yeah, this is turning into a stitch-up. Oh, come on, I'll do the hair. I'm not doing... The beard will be ridiculous. I'm willing to do that half. It'll be like a bit of a Slim Shady, I reckon. I don't know if I can do the Hulk Hogan. There's not enough hair there. Yeah, I'm probably looking at Latrell or Cody as captain personally as well, Jetty. and I reckon I'm leaning towards Latrell. I just feel like he might finish off a bit more this week, but exactly right as you said. Flip a coin. What else have we got? There's all the chat now about peroxide and friggin' whatever. Head-to-heads as well, Bugs. So all that's happening as well. It sort of started last week. And
I didn't put the head-to-head, so I tend not to do the head-to-head results until we start to get to finals. So I'm going to stick with that.
yeah, so it looks like that's about it. I don't know if we have an all just banter around the bleaching of my eyebrows and beard and no mo. And
they're more into fucking hair care than Supercoach by the looks of things.
Oh, there's probably some good pods she's going to have in her side that can make this plausible. I might be in a bit of strife here.
Well, mate, I know that me and Josh King aren't going to make any bets because she's fucking whooping us.
That's all right, Stewie. Fair call. That's a pretty good call.
Oh, Jed Rose is saying Kyle Flanagan pod this week. Step it up a notch and score 15.
I hope so, because I got him in one of the drafts with the Cashy draft, and him and Moses scored a combined total of 20, I think. Anyway, I reckon that's us, Bogues. It looks like it's all just a bit of banter in the chat now, but thanks everyone for tuning in. Great to see everyone in the chat.
I've got
again.
Next week off work, so I might be drunk next week. I might get
no
some
dramas.
bourbons. Might be interesting.
Yeah, no, good to see everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for jumping in the chat. May the trade gods be kind. May your captain choices be fruitful. And we'll see you all next week and do it again, won't we?
Have a good one.